Hi guys, and welcome back to our second part of our trauma video. As you can see, we're at that time of the year here. It's November, it's cold out today. There's a lot of falls happen in Ireland every year and across the world, and on average there's 170 million fractures per year. Now a lot of people get mixed up with the word fracture as opposed to a break, but it's the same thing, and we're going to explain in a minute. So when we're talking about injuries, so standard injuries that would happen in weather like this is falling down would be wrist injuries, ankle injuries and knee injuries. So on an average there's about 182 people per 100,000 suffer with wrist injuries. It's nearly the same for ankle and patellar knee injuries as well. In 2020 there was 2,812 hip injuries in Ireland, of people that broke their hip, and we're going to go into that in detail in a minute to have a look at it. 871 were men and 1,941 were women. So when dealing with fractures, here's a straightforward stick representing a bone obviously, and what happens then is when you go along through any kind of pressure that comes on the bone or the body, you'll see a fracture. So some people, when they break their bones, it goes like that. Other people then it actually breaks fully, and you get complicated fractures. And complicated fractures are basically where there's a lot of underlying issues, you can see here. Now another problem we're going to be faced as well when the stick breaks is if you imagine these elastic bands as your muscles or your tendons, and as a result of that, what happens is when they're stretched, they're normally stretched out like that, but as a result of being broken here today, what you'll find is one bone will slide over another, and that's where a lot of the pain comes from. And we're going to show you how to mobilize this particular injury in a second. Another injury we come across a lot in children is with the smaller bones, and they call it a green stick fracture. So what happens is the stick and the bone will bend for children up to about the age of 8 years of age, and as a result when it breaks then it splits like this, as you can see. So you get a green stick fracture, and that can be very careful. Now remember, yet again, is when you break bone like this becomes a razor blade. This is very sharp, and the least amount of injury could actually make it cut through the skin. So you have to be very careful with injuries like that. So the whole thing is we're going to show you in a minute how to immobilize the injury. We'll just put it at the bottom of this then, Mr. Beard.
Yeah.
Nice and solid in for the Christmas. That time of year again. It's freezing out. Mind yourself now, they're loose.
Ah, my wrist.
Right, come here. Ah. Whoa, take it out. Cup your hand in there, Excellent. Okay, come on way out. Take your time, huh? You feeling okay? Yeah. Because I know it's really sore at the moment. We'll see. Here, Ian, sit down, relax there now. Okay, don't move your hand. Where's it very sorest? Show me.
Around here.
Okay. And what did you feel when you fell over?
It's a sharp pain.
Right, a sharp pain. So I'm going to be very careful there now, right? Next thing I'm going to do is ask you to close your eyes. I'm going to touch your hand. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Which finger will I touch?
My thumb.
Okay, can you wiggle your fingers ever so gently? Excellent. I'm going to check for cap refill as well. Okay, the arm is warm above and below the site of injury. Cap refill is good, and I'm going to check for a pulse here ever so gently, and have a full bounding pulse. So don't forget to check out our first video on that. Marie, is the first aid kit there anywhere?
No, it's gone off in Aoife's car.
Sure, right. Okay, get me out a box out of the press there, will you? And we'll make up an ounce lid for him.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Lovely. So I'll get any old cardboard box at all. Like that now. So what we're going to do now, Kaveen, is just I want you to relax now a minute, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to fold this over in half. There's a small bit of cardboard, right? Just relax there now for a minute. Any piece of cardboard will do it. I'm going to put a small bit of tissue inside this for a bit of comfort. Right? Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you, can you catch hold of your hand here, right? Put your hand around it this way. Lift it ever so gently. I know that's very sore, I do apologise now. Okay, put your hand in there. Okay, I'm going to turn your hand and I'm going to hold it tightly. Right, can you hold that side there for me, Kaveen? Okay, you still got hold of it there. Straighten out your fingers here if you can. I know it's very sore. How's that now?
It's sore, but
right,
it's better.
We'll get there now. Okay, so remember guys, anything you have at home, there's loads of stuff at home. Anything to do with a bit of packing, a bit of comfort. I'm going to put it in here. Hold it here. Have you the sellotape there, Marie? Okay. The scissors there, Marie. Let me cut this. Please. Okay, how are you feeling now, Kaveen? Can you still feel my finger?
I can.
Okay, so you just relax now. So we're going to bring you off to the hospital in a few minutes. We're going to get you. We're going to get an X-ray of that. We don't know whether it's broken or not because of the swelling that's on it. Okay, I'll get another bit of tissue here. Just put that in there. Hold that there as well if you can. Alright, now if I'm squeezing too tight, turn your hand slightly. Yeah, excellent, good lad. I'm not going to go too tight because I don't want to cut off circulation to the skin. All I want to do now is, like everything at home, folks, it doesn't have to look the prettiest. All we're looking about is mobilising the hand here. How's that feeling?
Good.
Now, a little bit up the top there. Rest your hand down there, keep it rested, right? I'm going to put this on here so we don't stick to the skin. Hold that there again for me. How's the pain now? Relax.
It's better.
Okay. Why do you think, is it better since we put this on?
Yes.
Hold it together. Okay, I'll go another bit there. Okay, so what I want you to do now is put it up against your chest there. Nice and now, Kaveen.
It's better now.
Right, okay. Just relax yourself now. So I'm going to check your arm again. Can you wiggle your fingers for me? Okay. I'm going to check cap refill. Okay. Can you feel me touching your finger?
Yeah.
Which finger am I touching?
My index finger.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, obviously, we're going to keep you warm. I'm going to get another fleece to put around you. And we'll get the keys of the car there, Maria. I'll bring him into hospital. Can you sit forward, come in? How are you feeling at the moment now?
Better now.
Do you feel any faint or anything like that?
No.
I'll change my shoes now and we'll go to town. So you saw our management of a fracture, straightforward fall that happened at home. A young gentleman fell over, hurt his wrist. We didn't know if it was a fracture or a sprain or a strain because due to the swelling, and you will never know, guys. So unless you have an orthopedic surgeon alongside you, you're in trouble. So the first thing we did is we got him in, we got him to reassure the patient. Also as well, did you notice that people will always go to a position of comfort for themselves as well? I didn't use a triangular bandage here today because for the purposes of today's exercise we had nothing at home, only bare utensils that we found. So we had a box, a bit of sellotape and a bit of kitchen paper or a bit of tile roll, anything that'll immobilise it. So as I discussed in my little video earlier on about the fracture, and always and never the pain comes from the two bones rubbing together. Be very, very careful if you're playing sport, anything of that nature, and somebody goes along and you query that they break something, do not move them if at all possible unless it's life over limb. Another thing we noticed about the patient as well is when we brought him in and we put it up and we elevate the limb and we get the person to hold the arm like that. In my experience, that what happens is when I go for people with fractured wrists like that, they're more comfortable in a lot of cases like that. We do put on a splint or something of that nature to look after them, and we get them to sit down and relax. Okay, so when we're looking at fracture management then, so we'll take it in that we have a person lying down on the ground and they fall over and they're playing sport or they're doing something. So first thing we're looking at then, as we can see the two legs here, they're upright, they're facing this way, so that's a good indicator that everything is okay at this moment in time. If I was to come along and one of the legs is slanted out this way, this is an unnatural stance for most people, because most people would either have a stance straight forward or the legs like that, so it's symmetrical. But here I noticed then that this has gone this way. So what that might indicate to me then, especially when you're dealing with older people, as I mentioned earlier on, there's over 2,500 hip injuries in Ireland every year. So we're looking at this. So if I come into a house and I found a leg right over like that, that's an excellent indicator of neck and femur injury, so a fracture high up. If I come along then as well and I find the two legs open like this, that could be an indicator of a pelvic fracture, whereas what happens is that the pelvis goes like, it sits like a book and then it opens out, and it'll open out, and that's a good indicator of this. Another thing that you might find then is a shortening rotation of the leg as well. So one leg will be up the way, one leg is shorter. I'll just turn it this way so we can see it come in. So one leg will be shorter than the other and it'll be rotated out, as you can see the difference here. Here we have a patient sitting up. So if you come into an elderly person and they're complaining of pain in their right hip or their left hip, always have a look at the knees here. As you can see, there's a big difference in the knees here. So there's about maybe 2 inches in the difference here between one leg and the other leg, which would be a good indicator of a pelvic or a neck and femur injury, an injury that's high up and rotated as well. So, quick recap on tonight. We talked about a bit of fracture. So we saw what a straightforward fracture was, and remember, a fracture is a break. We talked about green stick injuries as well. So remember breaking the stick and it splits out, and that happens predominantly a lot of younger children. Remember, yet again, bone is like a razor blade, and any bad movement you can actually cut through the skin, and you will infect the wound and make it a lot worse on the patient. The thing about it is, get the patient to relax, sit down as best as they can. As you saw with our patient, we made a homemade splint, just put it on with a bit of box, bit of timber, anything you have at all. Remember, if you are using sellotape or cling film or anything like that, make sure you put something on the skin so it doesn't stick to all the hair in their arms, or you give them a free beauty session as well. So the thing about it is, we talked about fracture management for a lot of old people. As we mentioned earlier on, there was over 2,500 fractures in 2021 documented by the HSE. And 90% of them happen in the home. So that's where most incidents are going to happen, especially with the weather the way it is nowadays. We get frost, we get a bit of snow, slippy footpaths. I remember working a shift a few years ago. It was a very frosty morning. There was something like 18 fractures came in to our local hospital before 9 o'clock in the morning because of ice and black ice. So be very, very careful with elderly people out there. Christmas is coming up very soon, within a month, and we don't need to be going after the A&E department if at all possible. So if you like our video, yet again, thank you very much for all the likes and the comments that we get on a weekly basis. If you do like us, give us now a like and a subscribe.